Well, welcome to ValleyHoopsInsider.com and the podcast, Valley Hoops Insider Podcast. Harry Schrader with you on this Friday afternoon, not downtown, Crestwood, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri. And a lot of people reach out to me over and over and over again wanting to know what's going on with Art Hains, our beloved friend, voice of the Bears at Missouri State sports. And of course, we're a basketball centric thing and the voice of the basketball Bears. And I've been down in Springfield a time or two since all of this took place with Art and, trying to talk to people there. And we just wanted to give you guys the best update we possibly could. So I reached out to his son, Chris Hains, to talk to us about all that's going on, progress, delays, just the different things so that you all could know exactly what's going on. And so we're bringing Chris into the broadcast now. Let's see. You're already there. I got to hit this button, and we'll see what happens next. Maybe add to. I'm really technically sound. There he is. Chris Hains, a good-looking young man, lives in Kansas City, has that awful Kansas City Chiefs jersey on, sweatshirt on there. Hey, Chris, first, just thanks for taking time to kind of talk to all of us. I mean, I'm the conduit today, but you're talking to hundreds of people that just care about your dad. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Harry. Excited to be here.
So back in September, Dad contracts West Nile disease, which, so stupidly random, and his health begins to fail. Can you take us through just that first day or two? I don't want to go super deep into that stuff. Take us into the first couple of days, and then I want to get back and get to know you a little bit before we talk about just where he's at today.
Yeah, absolutely. He was heading down to the Missouri State game in Arkansas to play the Razorbacks. And started to kind of have some leg pain on the travel down there. Wasn't sure what was going on, and asked they drove privately, him and the color man, Dennis Heim, and just asked him to drop him off at the door there to the stadium instead of parking and walking up as normal. So that was kind of weird, the color man, Dennis thought. But he got up to the desk and called the game, and Bears fought valiantly in that game. It was a very close one against the Razorbacks. And then after the game, he asked to have the car pick him up again because he was really hurting, and the whole ride home he was kind of complaining about that, thought maybe he pulled some muscle or something. So the next day he went to the emergency room and kind of got checked out. He started getting some back pain with it, and they checked him for kidney stones to see if that was it. He'd had that in the past, and it wasn't. Sent him home after being in the emergency room waiting room for like 10 hours that day and just writhing pain in his legs. Wow. And then, the next day it got worse and started to really hurt in his back too. And he went and saw the Missouri State trainer to check for pulled muscles. Trainer was like, no, I think you got something else going on here internally that's affecting you. You should probably go back to the emergency room. And so later that day he did, that night he did, because he could no longer walk.
Wow.
He lost the ability to walk. My mom didn't know what to do. So she called 911. They called me right away up here in Kansas City and just stated it. And I couldn't, I was like, come on, maybe he's got some kidney stones. Like, you couldn't have walked him down to the car and taken him to the emergency room yourself.
The kind, compassionate son just shined right through, right?
Right. That wasn't the case. And the next morning I called him. I was like, Dad, how are you doing? Do you need me to come down there? And at first he was like, oh, I think I'm okay. I think it's just a kidney thing. But then the more he talked, the more fear I heard in his voice, like the unknown about it. So I just beelined right to Springfield, got there Tuesday. He was in the emergency room. They were running all the tests on him, trying to figure out what's going on. They couldn't. We finally got him out of the emergency room and up to an inpatient room just for observation. And I remember that night at like 10 p.m., I was like, all right, Dad, do you want me to stay the night with you or are you good? And he was like, no, you'll be more comfortable at home. Go home. I'm fine. And I kind of positioned him a pillow next to him. I came back the next morning. He hadn't moved a square inch, and now he couldn't move his arms, and somebody was feeding him breakfast.
Wow.
I was just stunned. And as the paralysis had moved up, And by later that afternoon, the doctor came into the room and said, I think he's got Guillain-Barré syndrome,
I
which
remember that part of it.
I
Yeah.
wasn't aware of that. But he's like, this is dangerous. Like, if it's ascending, it could ascend up further and shut down his diaphragm. We need to get him to the ICU. So he saved his life by even with the wrong diagnosis. I mean, that got us to the ICU quickly. They were ready to monitor him, and I mean, by Thursday morning, he was gasping for air and had to have a ventilator. And then by Friday, he was pretty much completely paralyzed, even up to the top of his head. By Saturday night, so a week after that game, the results had come back. It's West Nile virus. And then by Sunday, the doctor neurologist was by bedside and said, I don't think he has a very good chance of surviving this.
Wow.
They sent the chaplain up to visit the family. It was a very tough day, but my immediate reaction was like, this is unacceptable. I want to get a second chance, get another doctor that's got faith that he's going to make it. And there was nothing wrong with the care that he was given in Springfield. It was just like a gut reaction that I wanted to do. And so I actually reached out to the Chiefs radio network for connection there to the Kansas City physicians with KU Med, and they helped us get a bed there at KU. And the folks at Cox were wonderful. The friends we have there to agree to do a transfer, and they airlifted him to KU. And so we've been on that journey ever since. 2.5 weeks at KU Med of just kind of getting some functionality back and kind of a little bit, at least being able to move his face and that kind of stuff. And then over the last 2.5 months now, we've been at Madonna Rehab in Lincoln, Nebraska, where that's a long-term acute care facility, and we're trying to continue to get him now off the ventilator. He's gotten close, but not quite there yet.
We're talking with Chris Hains. We're talking about his father, Art Hains, who is the studio host of the Chiefs games, as well as being the voice of Missouri State Bears athletics, and a longtime friend of mine. I've known Art for years and years and years, and we're the same age. Talking about striking close to home. Like, I've known your dad a long time, and we're both the same age, and like, yikes, this is just kind of out of nowhere. I mean, such a strange journey. Chris, before we go further, tell us, I told you before we got on, I want people to know you a little bit. You're growing up, and dad is the voice of the region. That had to be an interesting kind of way to grow up.
Yeah, I have attended many Valley games across, in pretty much every venue, and been to Arch Madness every year since I was a 6-year-old, which amazingly was the year after they won their only Valley title at Arch Madness, which blows my mind. So I have vowed to never storm a court until the Bears win Arch Madness. Someday that'll happen.
Maybe this spring, yes.
We'll see, but yeah. So I remember my parents were always like, you go to any college you want. Let's think through this, what you want to do in your life. And I was just such a diehard Missouri State fan that going anywhere than Missouri State was going to feel like a traitor. So went to school there with some buddies. I even had a summer internship at the Valley, working there. So the Valley's just near and dear to my heart. And obviously my dad's impact on that is super influential.
You're in Kansas City now and working in IT. How did you end up in Kansas City? Just with a job?
I think that was, and again, probably my dad's influence. Just he was a Chiefs and Royals fan, and bringing me up to games my whole life. I loved Kansas City, and the time came once I graduated to take a job somewhere, and I was a finance major, so I got a job in finance up here in Kansas City. Then my wife started working at what was called Cerner, now Oracle Cerner, and said, this place is amazing. And I took the jump, even though I had no healthcare IT knowledge, and did it and haven't looked back.
So I said your dad's a great man, not perfect. Obviously, he likes Kansas City more than St. Louis. I just don't understand it. So besides that, I think he's outstanding. Take us to your own personal thing. You talked about, man, okay, this isn't acceptable. I need a better answer. It had to be a shock to you and the entire family, just this complete left turn in your father's health.
Yeah, I mean, the Guillain-Barré diagnosis was scary enough, but with that, it's going to go up and it's going to come down, and it, then you're dealing with the the repercussions of that, the rehab. Some people have to relearn to write and walk and stuff. We were scared enough of that, but felt like, okay, we've got an idea of what's going to happen. This is, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I mean, this is it only happens to 1% of people that even get West Nile have neuroinvasive repercussions from it, and it really is because it gets into the spinal cord, and then the paralysis moves up from there, and he ends up having myelitis, encephalitis, meningitis, which are maybe some things that people are familiar with, and the devastating impacts from that. So the thing we're clinging to right now is we've joined some West Nile survivor groups and heard from people that have survived and people that were in just as bad a condition, even a lady that was on the ventilator all day and all night for 11 months. And after 2 years, she was standing for her Christmas picture this year. So wow. We still have hope that he's going to make that kind of recovery. He's only, what is this, 3.5 months into this thing now. We just want to continue to try to give him time and the support that he needs to recover and hope for a full recovery.
We've been praying for him a lot and trying to rally people to be praying for your father. So in the journey of recovery, before we came on, I was talking to you about the picture I'd seen on Twitter that somebody posted yesterday where he was sitting up in a wheelchair and looked happy and all that. Tell us, where's he at today? I know there's times when he's on the ventilator, times when he's not. I mean, just give us a little bit of kind of where he's at.
Yeah. So he left the KU ICU fully on the ventilator for the most part. Actually, he was 100% still on it day and night. And since he's been at Madonna there the last 2.5 months, he's gotten down to as little as only having it for 4 hours at night. And then he's gotten a pneumonia. And then, we kind of had to start over. And then we kind of got it working down. And then he had an abdominal obstruction that had to have surgery. So he went to the hospital, emergency surgery, was at the hospital there for a week. Came back, started over, got it weaned down again, and then we got another pneumonia. So it's just this like battle. And unfortunately, at some point, the time kind of runs out from an insurance standpoint, and you got to move down the levels of care. So I think that's probably our next step in this journey is now we're going to have to move to a skilled nursing facility, which would probably be the lowest level of care that he could get to safely, at least right now. And there aren't very many in the country that will accept somebody still on a ventilator. So I guess fortunately or unfortunately, one of them's in Lincoln where he's already at. So that's probably going to be our next move. We'd love to get him home to Springfield at this point, but it just doesn't sound like that's an option.
And I've heard different people that have said, I talked to Art, or I heard from Art, or blah, blah, blah. Tell us about his communication ability, because for a while he wasn't really even able to talk, right?
Right. Well, not at all until he got there. And the weaning of the vent's the one thing. And then we've gotten, he can move his head now. He can lift his shoulders. He can turn to speak to you. He can talk. Not super well because he's had a tracheotomy, which is really the best route to go if you're going to be a long-term ventilation patient instead of having the tubes down your throat. And he's now moved from pureed food to he's eating solid foods again. So again, it's a lot of arm movements and stuff like that. We're seeing these little improvements week over week. It's just such a long journey, and reading these case studies and these other folks from the survivor groups, that's just kind of what we're dealing with with this particular illness.
A long journey that it's already been, and you guys are, fighting forward for the rest of it. You talked about insurance being great and being helpful, but shifting around, and there is a GoFundMe page out there that people are donating money to. And you were telling me before that up until this point, you guys haven't tapped into that much, but down the road, it looks like that will become more of a front and center kind of need.
Yeah, it could, but we didn't ask for that originally, and we were like, it's fine, and insurance is gonna cover most of this. and then sending them up to the rehab. It's like, okay, my mom's gonna have to pay for an Airbnb to be there the whole time, and that's fine. We're fine. But if he's moving to the nursing home, you're only going to have so many days covered there, and then that could become a situation where that's a very expensive out-of-pocket care at that point. Our hope is that 60, 90 days from now, he is fully off the ventilator. We just got to stop having setbacks and things that happen to kind of prevent him from making that full progress off of it. And then once he gets off of it, now that opens up our options to any nursing home. So maybe we could bring him back to Springfield if we felt that was the right move, and then kind of go from there. And hopefully he builds up some body mobility beyond just a little bit of an arm movement. Maybe he can move some legs or get some more control of those arms to where we can go to a rehab facility where we can really build body strength at that point. But got to get off the vent first.
And I wanted to ask you a question about response from people. I know a lot of people have probably responded to you guys with text, emails, social media posts, the GoFundMe page. Talk about just the response of your father's vast army of friends and people that he has come in contact with.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, your videos from the folks around the valley were touching. I mean, I played one for him there when he was still in the ICU and couldn't even open his eyes, but I saw a tear come out of his eye, and I saw him crack a little bit of a smile or raise an eyebrow when he would hear a voice he hadn't heard or a friend from around the league. So those were meaningful, certainly to the family and to him, and something I think he'll watch again as he is kind of continuing to improve. And not only that, just everybody reaching out. I mean, the GoFundMe thing has just been unbelievable, just to see people just that don't even know him, just truly touching all the cards and well wishes and prayers more than anything, which is what we've always been asking for. So really supportive from everybody. And I mean, I got emotional today. A couple people called after they found out the transfer to an LTAC or an extension and an LTAC wasn't going to happen. And we were likely to have to start the clock on that nursing home situation, and just brought me to tears. Just people saying like, you haven't even asked yet. Just say the word and we'll get some things going and make sure he gets all the time he needs, because we know this is a long-term situation.
That's beautiful. Yeah, we need friends, right? I mean, we just all need friends all the time, but particularly when it's a difficult scenario, like a tragically difficult scenario. So when I think about your father, of course, he's a great broadcaster and a prince of a man and all of that. And I think about what he's going through right now. And of course, our first inclination is, man, just get healthy, kind of recover, get better. I'm tremendously selfish. However, I want him back behind the mic and talking about Bears basketball or Bears football or whatever. Does he even talk about that? Like, well, yeah, I got to get better. I got to get back and call games. Or is he more laser focused on just, the ventilator,
He's very much aware of the games and all that. And we've been turning the game on the radio for the most part where he's at, because the hospital doesn't have ESPN Plus for him to watch that. Nor would my mom probably know how to operate that to get it on for him. But he's been listening to the games, and every time I go up there, which is every couple of weeks, he wants to know about the team, the players, coaches, what's happening around the league, and obviously with the Chiefs too. So yeah, he's still his old self with the sports. I think. Yeah, sure. He would probably love to get back on the mic as soon as possible, but one step at a time here.
Wow. Listen, we appreciate you spending time with us. Anything when you think about Dad's recovery, anything else you think, oh, I should tell them about this. I should tell them he's doing this, not doing that. I mean, any thoughts before we let you go? I don't want to keep you super long.
Oh, it's okay. He was put in a challenging spot last week in a really tough meeting we had at the hospital. And he stood up for himself and said, like, I believe in myself. I'm going to do this. And so I think just hearing that for me was big, because I can't imagine the pain and just the emptiness he's felt over this time. You can't even move hardly. Everybody has to care for you fully. So just to hear that he's willing to keep fighting is huge. And, it's something I'm looking forward to seeing him recover. And it's probably going to be a tough Arch Madness for me personally, just being there. I plan to still go, but not having him there like always. But hopefully something special can happen this year for the Bears.
Absolutely. Well, I cover the whole league, so I can't root for the Bears, but I am rooting for your dad, and it would be special for something cool to happen with the Bears as he's trying to recover. And Bears are off to a good start too in conference play. I like some of the changes they've made, and excited about that. Chris Hains, appreciate your time today. We're praying for your dad all the time. Every place I go to different arenas and talk to different people, and virtually the first question they ask me is, what do you know about art? It's almost the first question everybody asks every time I go anywhere. I was on a Drake podcast the other day, and they said, well, Harry Schrader's here, and Harry, how's art? I was like, here we are, and so he's just so loved in our league and around the Midwest, and obviously related to the Chiefs, although I'm not close to that. But so we appreciate your time today. You're in our prayers, and yeah, don't hesitate to ask. We will promote, shout out anything you want shouted out. We'll try to get the people rallied behind you guys.
Appreciate it, Harry. Thank you for the time.
That's Chris Hains. He's the son of Art Hains. We've been talking about Art's recovery. I believe recovery is on the way. That's what we're shooting for, and looking forward to having Art back behind the Missouri State Bears microphone and telling us all about Bears basketball, football, baseball, all the jazz he has done for so many years. That'll do it for this podcast. We'll shut it down for now. Remember, since you've been there, make it a better place. We'll see you again real soon.